Hey everyone, welcome to today's edition of One Single Story, where each weekday we tackle a single relevant question based on our Bible reading for that day. This week we're in the book of Galatians, and today I'm joined by Alyssa Bream and Zack Unkenholz. And we are finishing chapter 3 and into chapter 4 was our reading for today. Just a couple of verses that I want to read. It says, "So now that you know God, or should I say now that God knows you, why do you want to go back again and become slaves once more to the weak and useless spiritual principles of this world?" First, sometimes we, I don't even know how to preface what I want to say. I think we have so little firsthand knowledge of slavery. When we talk about this concept, we're limited in our ability to explain it or to give breadth to it. Slavery was common, both forced slavery and I think they would call them bond servants, bond slaves who chose to be a slave. They chose that to be their lot in life. So when we talk about the term slavery, I want to preface by saying we have limited understanding of that concept, even though it is prevalent today in other human trafficking. It is kept underground. Is that the best way to say it? It's not. It's not like, okay, I'm a slave owner and I've got a plantation like it would have been 200 years ago here in this nation. But what does it mean when he says to go back again and be a slave? What is he talking about here? He says, why do you want to go back again and become slaves once more to weak and useless spiritual principles of this world? What is he referring to? And how strongly, because when I see the word slave, it's an abhorrent word to me. It's a concept that I've never been able to wrap my head around, like how one human being could own another human being. I just haven't. I've never been able to grasp that. So he's using a strong terminology, or at least it seems to me. Maybe it's because of the world I live in. But when you read that, what do you think he's talking about? What is he talking about? To go back and be slaves of an inferior principle.
Galatians ends with a lot of talk of freedom in Christ. And I think that's what he's talking about here with going back and being slaves. You're denying the freedom you found in Christ by going back to having to follow all these rules, or going back to let sin rule your life, where you're not caring that you're hurting other people, that you're hurting yourself in that situation. I think that's the easiest way to put it, is you're going back to pre-freedom in Christ. You're just denying everything that he has provided for us.
It harkens back to the Old Testament with the Israelites in the desert complaining about, oh man, when we were back in Egypt, even though we were slaves, at least we had like food and stuff and whatever. And it reminds me of in VeggieTales, like Benny saying, "We were in slavery." Like, why would we go back? But the thing is, sometimes when something's all you've known, it's hard to adapt, and even freedom comes at a price and is not always easy too. But I think that for them, like sometimes knowing, like with example, following the law, it's easy to know, okay, I'm following the law or I'm not following the law, whereas it might not be so clear cut now once you're saved. If you don't understand it, if you don't understand this freedom, it's
and that makes people really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It makes me uncomfortable to a certain degree. So I don't need to point fingers at anybody else. Because we like boundaries, right?
Mhm.
We like conformity. We like, because occasionally I'll hear someone say, I don't know how they can be saved and hold that point of view. sometimes it's political, but
Mhm.
the reason why they say that is because they're uncomfortable with unconformity, things that don't look the same, you know. Um, but even things that look the same aren't the same.
Mhm.
Let me see if I can give you an example. Uh, when I was growing up, women had to wear dresses or skirts, and men had to wear suits and no makeup for women or jewelry. But their income and status in life was still shown through the clothes that they wore and how they maybe were able to spend money on their hair, or if they wore glasses, like you would see,
Mhm.
you could see that. I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. That opulence or the ability, the flair or whatever, be able to come out in places that weren't frowned upon.
Mhm.
A fancy watch,
Mhm.
you know, um, um, a, a brooch, a hairpin, all kinds of things. So even in those cases, you start to get differences. In the Jewish community, the Orthodox Jews, you can see a hierarchy based on the clothes. They may all say, "Okay, we're observing the law," but one guy may have on a $20,000 hat. Did y'all realize those things could be that expensive?
It's crazy.
It's a
Mhm.
stupid. They
Yeah.
could be extremely expensive, like and and hot. I would think some of them have to be hot, but they show off in the clothes they wear. They still express separation. They want conformity, but they want difference as well. And I think we're much more comfortable in conformity than we are in unconformity. That
Mhm.
that it makes us uncomfortable if somebody can, for example, hold this view but still claim to be a Christ follower, or if somebody um, has all of these characteristics of being a godly person, but over here they have this characteristic that's ungodly. We want conformity, and the things that fall outside of whatever boundaries we have drawn are the things that make us the most uncomfortable. And what I see him asking is, why do you want to go back and try? Why do you want to go back to this life where you feel like everybody's got to do the same exact thing? Because
Mhm.
but this time we have um, uh, Gentiles. Circumcision becomes a big argument.
Mhm.
Thank God I've never been around one. That was an
Yeah.
argument in the church, but that was a big argument. It was a
Yeah.
big deal. You can go back to Acts 15, and I mean they were coming to blows about, why are we not making them be circumcised? And the thing is, and that's a good example. Like this is pretty graphic, but it's a good example. We are willing to inflict pain on people in places that are not painful to us.
Mhm.
Right? Circumcision was it was easy for a Jewish man to say, you need to be circumcised, because he didn't even know when he was circumcised.
Mhm.
So he's 8 days old, and if he hurt, he don't remember it, right? But okay, you're coming to Christ, Mr. Gentile. I'm fine with you having to suffer because I just don't recall it. And I think still today we're that way. Not about circumcision, but there are things that have never been a problem for me that um, maybe I dealt with before. Maybe it was the home I was raised in. So we talked about wine yesterday. I think or maybe it was between podcasts. I don't know. Was it between podcasts
Yeah.
we were talking about wine? I've never developed a taste for it. It's not a thing for me. Alcohol in general is no big deal. And so for me to say, boy, you know, you shouldn't drink. This is something that for me was solved probably unknowingly to me as growing up in the home that I grew up in. Um, and so we like to inflict pain on people, but there are other things if you ask me to do, that would be painful to me. And that conformity piece becomes a problem. Do you guys think we still try to earn favor with God today?
I think there are times when I can look at other people and I can say, "Psh, well, at least I'm better than them," like, whereas we're in the grand scheme of things, like, we're both two, like, specks of dust, but, like, it's like we're like nothing compared to God, and we could never compare to the glory of Christ. But I think there are times when I can be prideful and I can think that, like, well, I'm a better Christian than them, or at least I'm on the straight and narrow path, and I think that sometimes with God, He loves us, and I can't change that for better or for worse, but I should still live a life to glorify God, and I think I should still live to, follow what He's called me to do. But I don't think that the the driving force behind it shouldn't be I'm trying to earn His love. I'm trying to earn favor with Him. It's just I just want to glorify Him. I want to love Him because He loves me.
Yeah, I think it's easy at times to forget that our salvation is fully done by Christ, and we don't have to earn it. I think that is a trap that periodically people can fall into, and that I've fallen into, and then usually there's like a light bulb moment. It's like, why am I doing this? And then you have to be reminded of God's unconditional love for you.
Yeah, this morning, as a matter of fact, as I was walking, a song, I've heard it before, but there was a line in it that caught my attention. It said, "You can't love me anymore, but you'd never love me any less." And that's the thing we have to understand about God is He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. Well, thank you for joining us on this edition of One Single Story. We hope you'll be back with us tomorrow as we continue a conversation around the book of Galatians.